What's doing, everybody? Welcome to First Class Fatherhood. I'm Alec Lace, and before I hit you with today's interview, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the link in the description so you can listen to all of the interviews I've done with so many tremendous dads, including Dana White, Deion Sanders, Tony Hawk, and so many others. Now let's get going with today's interview. Joining me now, First Class Father, JP Dinnell. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Let's start right here. How many kids do you have, and how old are they?
3 kids. I have a 13-year-old boy who's about to be 14, and we have twin daughters that just turned 8.
Wow, very cool. What type of sports or activities are they all into?
They all do jiu-jitsu, like we do jiu-jitsu as a family, and our son does cross-country running, and then he just started track season, he's in 8th grade right now, so he just started that. So he's doing the long-distance running portion, and he's doing shot put.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. If you could, JP, please just take a minute here to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
So I was in the Navy for 12 years. I joined the Navy to become a Navy SEAL. I made it through training, became a Navy SEAL, had a pretty awesome time in the military, learned a lot, was able to work alongside some amazing individuals and heroes. I worked for Jocko, Willink, and Leif Babin and Seth Stone. We were a part of Task Unit Bruiser, part of the historic Battle of Ramadi back in 2006. I had the fortunate ability to work alongside Kyle. That's who I learned to be a successful sniper from, in addition to a handful of other guys that are still in. So we're not going to mention their names. They're still doing the deed, and no one needs to know who they are. But I was very fortunate to work alongside some amazing individuals. And Jocko and Leif wrote a book called Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. They had a leadership and management consulting company that they were running, and they brought me on board 3 years ago as their first instructor. So I've been a leadership instructor and speaker with them, and now I am our director of experiential training. So it's all the hands-on scenario-based leadership training that we do.
Yeah, that's awesome, JP, and thank you for your service, of course.
I appreciate it. It was my honor to serve, man.
Yeah, and you know what? You've had all these experiences in your life. About how old were you when you first became a father, and how did becoming a dad kind of change your perspective on life?
Man, I've had some pretty awesome experiences, and I got to do some amazing stuff when I was young in the military. When we deployed to Ramadi, that was my second deployment, and I just turned 23. And so there's been times when as an adult, as a parent, like, it didn't matter the age, you feel overwhelmed, right? And I just would think about the things that I learned in the military and how they were able to help kind of mold me as a young man. And just the biggest thing that I learned from the military that I tried to implement as a parent, which I fail at all the time, is detaching, right? Is if I can learn to detach, I'm able to choose my words better. I'm able to parent better. I'm able to be a better husband, and it makes a better family. So it's kind of one of the things I learned from the military, and that's how I try to approach it as being a parent. I don't think it matters what age you are when you become a parent. If you can recognize it is not your responsibility to lead those kids, that's what you need to recognize.
Yeah, well said. And you may have touched on it a little bit there, but I know obviously being a SEAL requires a ton of discipline. But what type of disciplinarian are you when it comes to being a dad? And is it different between your son and your daughters?
Well, I mean, we're pretty even with our kids, but naturally, I'm going to discipline our 13, almost 14-year-old boy different than girls that are 8, right? They have different things in their lives that mean something to them. Our daughters do not have phones. Aiden has a phone, and he realizes, and we made him understand that phone is not a right; it's a privilege. And we take things away from our kids that we know that they enjoy if they don't follow the rules and responsibilities that we give them. Very rarely do we ever really have to spank our kids. They understand, and they know that we don't kind of play when it comes to, hey, we told you not to do this. This is what you're not going to do. And if they do it, there's an escalation. And then sometimes the escalation goes straight to a spanking. Very rarely do we ever have to do that.
Yeah.
My dad and my mom were great parents. They, of course, like parent out there, they lost their temper, they yelled, they had to scream. But when I step back and think about it now, most of the time, should they have done that? No, but who cares, right? They were never abusive. They were never degrading to us, and they never, physically or mentally were abusive. So I just look at that. I say, okay, hey, I pushed their buttons. I pushed them to a limit that, they kind of lost their temper. They lost control of their emotions. And I try to become aware of that myself, is just like, hey, I need to be able to check my emotions so that I don't lose my temper, because I know when I lose my temper, I say and do things that I'm not proud of, that I regret. And I try to recognize that. I mean, the more calm and collect that you can be in any position as a leader, whether it's of your family or of your business, the better you're going to be. Learning to detach is always going to help.
Yeah, well said. And I did see, I see you threw up that picture there of your daddy-daughter dance. Now, how were you able to manage and finagle that, having to bring two twin girls to the daddy-daughter dance?
Man, it was so much fun. We just made it a fun environment, and I just danced all night long with them, and it was just made it all about them. And it was really sad, the amount of dads that were at this daddy-daughter dance not engaged with their daughters, like sitting down while the kids are dancing, or sitting over in the corner on the phone, or talking with the other dads. I mean, it was, to be honest, it was bullshit, and it was really sad to see, because they're not going to get those times back, right? And now, I don't want to come off and act like I'm always perfectly engaged with my family. And I mean, yeah, there's a lot of times my wife has to remind me to get off my phone or to be present, because I'm so focused and caught up in work. But what I'm trying to be more conscious of is when I go do stuff with my kids, to just go do stuff with my kids, right? So Aiden and I, we go to the gym, we go work out. The only time I'm on my phone is to take pictures of him, right? And it was cool, because he was like, hey, I kind of get on to him about bringing his phone charger with him all the time. And I was like, why are you bringing it? He's like, well, my phone's dead. I'm like, well, you don't need your phone. He's like, well, in case we want to take pictures or videos of our workouts. And I'm like, okay, awesome, bro. Because he learned that from me saying, hey, I try to, if I'm doing different lifts, I try to record what I do so I can watch my form and kind of see my feedback of how I'm doing stuff. And I'll send it to buddies who are coaches, and they'll say, hey, watch this, or hey, your back was a little curved, or hey, you didn't have hold a straight line. So I'm trying to explain and teach him those things. And it was really cool, because then the next time we were going to the gym, he wanted to bring his phone to record what we were doing. So when I'm doing stuff with them, I'm present. And the daddy-daughter dance was awesome. It was so much fun. And, I know eventually there's going to come a time where I'm not going to be able to go to the dances with my girls anymore, and they're not going to want to be dancing with their dad. So just try to soak it up as much as you can with your sons and daughters.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I have 4 kids myself. My youngest is my only girl, so we had the 3 boys and then got her on the end. So she's only 5 now, and I'm looking forward to those events myself coming up. Uh, you mentioned there, I mean, that's one of the positive things about the technology, is the ability that we have, just like you said there, to be able to record yourself, make improvements, send it to a coach. It's given us this opportunity to FaceTime when we're far away from our kids, and I think that's another big benefit. But there are so many downfalls to the technology as well. And you touched on it a bit there, but how do you kind of monitor or handle, the technology with your kids?
So we have different settings on the iPads just to kind of keep it like kids only, kids only. They know that they can't download anything without our permission. We've told our kids that if they download anything without a permission, we get a notification and we'll take it away from them, which isn't true, but they think that still. Aiden, I mean, he knows that what he's supposed to do and what he's not supposed to do. And we randomly will be like, hey, give me your phone. And he's like, okay. Just kind of go through it. And, like the other night I was on his Instagram. I'm like, hey, let me Instagram. I want to see who's following you, because I know there's one of my buddies put out hey, just be aware this guy is following young boys. And, it's this guy that's like preying on young boys. And I wanted to make sure, because he was following a couple of my buddies' sons within our little circle of group. And I was like, well, A, that's the wrong group of guys to be messing with their kids. I'll tell you that much. B, I'm going to make sure that he hasn't kind of worked his way into my son's account. And so I was looking over his stuff and just talking through it with him and just being open and honest. And, I think that's the biggest thing. If you can be open and honest with your kids and create open relationships, they're going to talk to you. They're going to say, hey, I got this weird message, or, hey, somebody told me to go do this, or somebody to do this, because they're not afraid, right? And our kids know that they can come and talk to us about anything. And if there is something that bothers us, we don't bring it out on them, because we know that if we do that, you're not creating a culture for open conversations. And that's important, right?
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, and my oldest is 13. He's about to be 14 as well. And one of the things that I'm concerned about more than anything is the ability for them with pornography is so readily available. Like when we were kids, I mean, if there was one kid in the class that had a Playboy, he was like the man. We all hung around his locker to sneak a peek. But it's like today, if they have access not just to their phone, but somebody in the class that has an unlocked phone, just a simple Google search of a new girl who will pull up thousands of photos. So have you had to deal with any of those issues yourself just yet, or no?
Yeah, we have. And it was just like, hey, bud, just because there's kids at school doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And, I just, the other day we just had a very brutally honest conversation about what all that stuff means, right? And not just like sex, like everything, like all like slang and just all the different situations that you could get yourself into, and, just kind of through it, and what he needs to avoid and what it means to to be a Christian with his faith, and not being sucked into that type of stuff. And so we've had to address it, and it's something that's very real out there. And so we just, again, open conversation and explain to them the consequences that can happen. That if somebody said hey, check this out, look it up, right, and he decided to look it up on his phone while at school or on the bus, and somebody sees it and is offended, then they go tell on him, that he could be suspended or expelled because of one little thing like that. So,
yeah. And what about for yourself, JP? What was the transition like for you out of the military now into the civilian world? And I know you do a lot of public speaking now. Is that something that you were always kind of into, or is that something you had to learn as you made your transition here?
Yeah. So when I got out of the military, I was doing sales for a financial company, and that was kind of a rough transition with going from being active duty in the SEAL teams, and that was my job every single day, to shifting over to suit, tie, sitting in traffic, going to an office, little cubicle space. I mean, that was a rough transition, man. But I had to provide for my family, and it was important. And so, there's a lot that I had to learn, but I enjoyed it. I liked it. I liked the aspect of what I could learn about business and learn about sales, and really helping somebody out. And then when Jocko and Leif brought me on board 3 years ago, I was kind of comfortable with talking. I mean, if you're in the military, you're going to have to talk. You're in positions of leadership. I was an instructor, so I had to talk, obviously, and they give you courses how to talk and speak in the military when you get that instructor rating. But there was always like this little subconscious, like, I don't want to talk in front of people. I have a fear of speaking thing, because I grew up with a speech impediment. And that was just something that I had to overcome and work with and deal with, man. And so, a lot of practice, a lot of work. Jocko and Leif are great instructors, great speakers, and I just try to emulate them, So
is the speech impediment something that any of your kids have, or no?
I don't think so. We haven't seen it. Not to where they need speech therapy. Like, I had to go through speech therapy in elementary school, so it's something that came out pretty bad, but not with them, which is good.
Yeah, and obviously, you're doing well with Jocko here and Leif with the Echelon Front. What type of goals? I mean, we're just about a month or two into the new decade here. What kind of goals do you have here for yourself for the future?
Well, just honing my physical back in where it needs to be. I kind of let that get out of balance as I was just focused on business. So finding the balance between, or finding the balance with my health and fitness levels. Like to compete a couple times this year for jiu-jitsu. And then, couple of things that we're going to be rolling out with Echelon Front for the FTX program that I run. And so the FTX is a field training exercises, which is part of the experiential training. And so it's just kind of really refining and honing that in to just to kind of take it to the next level on an individual type of base. So right now we have the musters, which sell out every single time. It's a 2-day leadership event with Jocko and Leif, the rest of the team. And so now we're taking that model and we're going to apply it to the hands-on scenario-based leadership training. So, let's say, somebody has a company of just 5 people and they, the FTXs are for anywhere between 16 to 24 people. That's kind of like the sweet spot. So about 20, right? Well, if you have 5 people, that training doesn't apply to you. You can't do the training. And so we've had a couple different people say, well, if you ever have one where we can combine them, let us know. And we knew that was something that we wanted to do from the get-go. And we've gotten some traction of interest. And so this year, 1, if not maybe 3 of those we're going to launch to where people can sign up and come do that training.
Yeah, very cool. That sounds awesome. And the last thing I want to hit you with here, JP, I'd love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about-to-be father who's out there listening?
Enjoy it and just remember, children are a blessing, not a burden. And there's going to be times where they're frustrating you and you're going to be tired and exhausted and at your wits' end, but you did the same thing to your parents. And I promise you, you'll wish one day you had spent more time with your kids, and you'll wish that you had done more with them. And heaven forbid if they ever get sick or something ever happens to them, you're going to hang on to every single moment that you have. So remember, your kids are a blessing, not a burden, and to enjoy every single moment you can with them.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. This has been an honor for me. I got to say, JP Dinnell, you're a first-class father all the way, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time on First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me out, bud.